Whether it's a product for home or business, farm or factory, you can be sure if it's Westinghouse.
Abraham. It's a fine name for a man to bear, anyway.
Suppose there's no doubt about the message they'll bring?
No. They'll nominate him right enough.
Abraham Lincoln. Known him 40 years. Never crooked once.
Mrs. Lincoln has just come in. She says she'll be here directly.
Well, Susan, how would you like your master to be President of the United States?
I dare say he'd do it very nicely, sir.
Can't leave Springfield and go to Washington.
Well, I dare say we'd take to Washington very well, sir. I dare say, too, Mrs. Lincoln is rather particular about the tobacco smoke.
Oh, yes, quite so, Susan.
Mr. Lincoln doesn't smoke, you know. And Mrs. Lincoln is especially particular about this room.
To be sure, Susan. Glad you reminded us.
Though some people might not hold with a gentleman not doing as he's a mind to in his own house, as you might say.
Mr. Stone?
Evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Cuffney. Won't you sit down?
Thank you, ma'am. Well, ma'am, this is a big evening for you.
It is. Surely Mr. Lincoln hasn't been smoking in here?
Oh, shall I open the window, ma'am? It gets a bit close in the evening.
Mr. Stone, we do not smoke in the parlor.
By no means, ma'am.
I shall be obliged to you.
Yes, ma'am.
What time do you expect the deputation, ma'am?
At 7 o'clock.
Has Abe decided what he'll say to the invitation?
Mr. Lincoln will accept.
And you, ma'am, have advised him that way, I trust?
Well, you said this was a great evening for me, and it is. And I'll say more than I mostly do, because it is. I'm likely to go down into history now with a great man, for I know better than any how great he is. I know that people say that I've a plain face and a sharp tongue, and that I've a mind that doesn't always go in his easy, high way, and that's what history will see, and it will laugh a little and say, poor Abraham Lincoln. Well, that's all right, but it's not all. I've always known when he should go forward and when he should hold back. I've watched and I've watched. And what I've learned, America will profit by. And there are lots of women like me. Lots of them. Only I'm luckier than most. My work's going further than most. It's going further than Illinois. It's going further than any of us knows. I made things easy for him and gave him time to think when we were poor. And now his thinking has brought him to this. They're coming to ask him to be president. And I've told him to go.
If you please, ma'am, I'd like to apologize for smoking in here.
Why, that's no matter, Samuel Stone. Only don't do it again.
No, ma'am.
You know, ma'am, I can hardly believe it. And I think of the times I've sat in this room of an evening, seen your husband come in with his battered hat next to falling off the back of his head and stuffed with legal papers that won't fit in his pocket. I just can't hardly believe he's going up there into the eyes of the world. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
I've tried for years to get him to buy a new hat.
Well, I've got a very good selection in the store, just in from New York. Maybe Abe would let me give him one for his departure.
He might, but he'll wear the old one.
Yeah, there are bigger things than that to think about now. Slavery in the South.
Ah, yes.
As John Brown said when they took him out to hang him, you may dispose of me very easily. I'm nearly disposed of now. But this Negro question is still to be settled. The end of that is not yet.
John Brown, did you say? Aye, John Brown. But that's not the way it's to be done. You can't do the right thing the wrong way. That's as bad as the wrong thing if you're going to keep the state together. Hello, Mary. Samuel.
Evening, Abe.
Timothy.
Evening, Abe. We've come to wish you well in the good words you've got to speak this evening.
Makes a humble man feel sort of afraid, Abe, to think that his friend's going to be one of the great ones of the earth. With his yes and no, the law for these many, many thousands of folk.
Makes a man humble to be chosen, so Samuel. So humble that no man but would say no to such a bidding if he dare. Be president of this people with trouble gathering everywhere in men's hearts. That's a searching, lonely thing. Bitterness, scorn, wrestling often with men I shall despise, and perhaps nothing truly done in the end. But I must go. Yeah, thank you, Samuel. Timothy, Mary, a glass of that cordial before they go. Now, it's in the cupboard there.
No, Mr. Lincoln, I had the girl keep it out. The cupboard's stuffed with your papers.
Now, the devil smudged that girl.
No.
Susan! Susan Dennington!
Mr. Lincoln.
Where in tarnation's that cordial? Poor hospitality for such whiskey-drinking rascals as yourself, but the thought's good.
Well, don't mention it,
Very
Abe.
sorry, Mr. Lincoln, but I was told...
All right. Now, Susan, get along with you.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln.
There you are.
Well, Timothy.
Thank you.
Samuel.
We wish you well, Abe. Our compliments, ma'am.
Thank you, gentlemen.
God bless America. Samuel, I give you the United States and Abraham Lincoln.
Samuel, Timothy, I drink to the hope of honest friends. To friendship, Mary, I'll need that always, for I have a queer, anxious heart. And God bless America.
Well, good evening, Abe.
Evening, Samuel.
Aye,
Timothy.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Stone.
Good night, ma'am.
Mr. Cockney.
Thank you for coming.
You'd better see the deputation in here.
That's good. 5 minutes to 7.
Yes.
Mary, are you sure about this?
Why, of course. Aren't you? Why, who's to shape it all if you don't?
There's nobody. I know it.
Then go.
Go.
And, Mr. Lincoln, that hat is a disgrace to you. Now, I know you think it doesn't matter, but a man like you should pay some heed to gentility.
Yeah, to be sure I forget.
No, you don't. You just don't heed. Do you know that Samuel Stone was smoking in here?
Well, now, he's a careless poor fellow.
Well, that he is, and a fine example you set for him. You don't care whether my parlor smells like poison or not.
Of course I do.
No, you don't. Your head's too stuffed with things to bother about my ways. But I've got neighbors, even if you haven't.
Well, now, your neighbors are mine, I suppose.
But then why don't you consider appearances a little?
To be sure, I must.
Will you get a new hat?
Yes, I must see about that.
When?
Well, in a few days before long.
Mr. Lincoln, I've a better temper than anyone will ever guess.
You have, my dear. And you need it, I confess.
Yes? The gentleman has come. I'll come to them.
Does Mr. Lincoln need a handkerchief? He didn't take one this morning.
Well, it's no matter now, Susan.
If you please, Mr. Lincoln, I brought one for you.
Thank you, Susan.
I'll send them in. Mr. Lincoln, I believe in you.
I know, Mary. I know.
Well, Mr. Lincoln, as you know, we've been sent from Chicago by the Republican Convention to inquire whether you will accept their invitation to become the Republican candidate for the office of President of the United States.
The convention feels that under the circumstances, its nominee will be almost certainly elected, seeing that the Democrats have split.
Well, gentlemen,
Thank you.
neither of you knows me personally. You know my many disqualifications for this work. There are a number of, shall I say, graces that I lack. Washington does not altogether neglect these.
Well, it's only fair to say that they've been discussed freely at the convention, sir.
Seward and Hook have both had great experience.
Hook had no strong support. Seward, well, there are some doubts about his discretion.
Don't be under any misunderstanding, I beg you. I aim at moderation so far as it is honest, but I'm a very stubborn man, gentlemen. If the South insists on the extension of slavery and claims the right to secede, as you know it very well may do, and the decision lies with me, it'll mean resistance, inexorable with blood. If needs be, I'd have everybody's mind clear as to that.
It will be for you to decide, Mr. Lincoln, and we believe you to be an upright man.
Seward and Hook, it'd be difficult to carry as subordinates.
Well, they'll have to be carried so. And there's none likelier for the job than you. Why, there's no other man the great majority of the party would follow so readily.
If you send me to the South, we'll have little but derision for your choice.
Oh, we believe that you'll last out thereafter.
I can take any man's ridicule. I'm trained to it by a somewhat odd figure, please God to give me. But this slavery business be long, deep, and bitter. I know it. If you do me this honor, gentlemen, you must not look to me for any compromise in this matter. You have no conditions to make.
None?
Miss Lincoln and I would like you to take supper with us.
Well, that's very kind, I'm sure, sir. But your decision?
I wouldn't want you to think it graceless of me to be slow in my decision, but once made, it's for the deep good or the deep ill of all his country. In the face of that, a man might well ask himself 20 times, when he's 20 times sure. You make no conditions, neither of you.
None. The invitation stands as I put it when we came. And I'd like to add that we are now, after having spoken to you, more proud than ever to bear it.
Thank you. And I accept.
Glad you think of that.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank
worried.
you. Susan Eddington.
Yes?
I just show these gentlemen to Mrs. Lincoln in the sitting room. I'll follow at once. Gentlemen. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me.
You've seen part one of Abraham Lincoln. Let's turn to our Westinghouse program. Just look at that. Well, what's he found in the newspaper?
He's going to show her. There. She told him that the self-defrosting refrigerator that she bought was the lowest price of them all. But here's an ad for one that's $50 less. And here's the refrigerator advertised. The Westinghouse Frost-Free. The finest automatic refrigerator made today, and at the lowest price ever for a genuine Westinghouse Frost-Free. Now, frost-free means no defrosting anywhere, not here in the freezer or here in the food storage section. There is just absolutely no defrosting anywhere in this refrigerator. So, when you're looking for a refrigerator, insist on seeing a genuine frost-free. You can identify it easily by this magic button, the sign of the Westinghouse frost-free system that's exclusive with Westinghouse. You won't find it in any other refrigerator. Now, you never touch that button. You see, every time you open the door, warm, moist air enters the refrigerator and causes frost. So when you've opened and closed the door enough times for frost to begin to form, this button gives a signal that starts the frost-free system working. And every bit of frost is wiped away so quickly that your frozen foods here in the freezer stay firmly frozen. Now, in most so-called automatic refrigerators, you still have to empty a pan or a jug of defrost water, but not with the frost-free. The defrost water evaporates automatically. You have nothing to do and nothing to touch. Let me show you all the other wonderful features you get in the Westinghouse Frost-Free, too. There's this real big freezer, a humid drawer down here that keeps your green things crispy fresh for days, and sturdy, easy-to-reach shelves in the door. Just think of getting all of these features together with real, completely automatic defrosting and saving up to $50. See this Westinghouse Frost-Free at your dealer. See the other Frost-Free models, too. There's a size for every kitchen and a price for every pocketbook. And this is important, too. Remember, you can be sure if it's Westinghouse.
We return now to Westinghouse Studio 1 and Abraham Lincoln.
Secretary, that by furthering my proposal, you might be the savior of the country from civil war.
We have to move warily. Remember, the President dwelt on his resolution to hold Fort Sumter in his inaugural address.
Put his mind at rest, sir. You persuade him to withdraw your forces from Fort Sumter, and we will instruct our General Beauregard to take no further action. Do this, and slavery can be settled round a table. The southern states do not wish to secede. They merely wish to establish their right to do so.
Well, you understand, of course, that I can say nothing officially.
These are nothing but informal suggestions, Mr. Secretary.
I may tell you that I am not unsympathetic.
I was sure it would be so. Good morning, Mr. Seward. Mr. Jennings, how do you do, sir? Good morning, Mr. President.
Good day, Mr. Jennings. I'm obliged to you for calling.
Mr. Jennings, perhaps you could spare me 10 minutes.
I'm honored, sir.
We'll say 5 minutes.
Perhaps you'll give me the pleasure some
I'm
other
always
time.
anxious for the opportunity to exchange views with our friends of the South. Much enlightenment can be gained in 5 minutes. Pray be seated, Mr. Jennings. If Mr. Seward will allow us.
Lord, shall I leave you?
Leave us, but why? I may need your support, Mr. Secretary, in case we should not wholly agree. Please have a seat, sir. You have messages for us?
Well, I can't say that I have.
No messages at all.
He is anxious to sound any moderating influences.
I trust he brings moderating influences with him. You find me a ready listener, Mr. Jennings.
Shall I tell the President what I came to say?
Mr. Jennings, in a common anxiety for peace, is merely seeking the best channel through which suggestions could be made.
To whom?
To the government.
Well, the head of the government's here.
But I thought it hard to work out.
Sir, please. What is it?
It's this matter of Fort Sumter, Mr. President. If you withdraw your garrison, it will not be looked upon as a weakness in you. It'll be looked upon as a concession to a natural privilege. The South at heart does not want secession. It merely wants to establish the right to decide for itself.
The South wants the stamp of national approval on slavery. It can't have it.
Mr. President, if I may say so, I don't think you quite understand.
Does Mr. Seward understand?
I believe so.
You're wrong, sir. He doesn't understand because you didn't mean him to. But I'll put your case for you, and I'll put it naked. By threatening secession, you hope to cram slavery down our gullets. But you weren't prepared for resistance. You don't want resistance. You hope if you can tide over the first crisis and make us give way, opinion will prevent us from opposing you with force again, and you'll get your way about this slavery business by threats.
In your opinion, then, you believe you can force freedom as much as you like, but we have to beware how we force slavery.
It couldn't be put better, Mr. Jennings. That's what the Union is. It's a union for common right. That's its foundation. Now, let's be clear about this issue. If there is a war, it won't be over the slave question. If the South is loyal to the Union, it can fight slave legislation by constitutional means and win its way if it can. We won't break up the Union, and you shan't. In your hands, not mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. Tell them that. Will you tell them that?
You are determined?
I beg you to tell them. Implore them to order General Beauregard to withdraw his forces. You can telegraph it now from here. Will you do that?
If you wish it.
Earnestly. Mr. Seward, would you place a clerk at his disposal? Ask for an answer.
Give Mr. Jennings a private wire and place yourself at his disposal.
Yes, sir. This way, sir.
Sir, this won't do. Now, what is it? Why didn't Jennings come to see me?
He thought my word might bear more weight with you than his.
Your word for what?
Discretion about Fort Sumter.
Discretion?
It's devastating, this thought of war.
Do you think you're more sensible to that than I am? War should be impossible, but you can only make it impossible by destroying its causes. Sir, you may think I'm simple, but I can see your mind working as clearly as you could see the innards of a clock. You could bring great gifts to this government with your zeal, your administrative experience, your love of men. Don't spoil it by thinking I've got a dull brain.
I beg your pardon.
That's brave of you, Seward.
Come in.
Has Mr. Jennings sent his message yet?
Yes, sir. He's awaiting a reply. There's a messenger from Major Anderson, sir. He's ridden straight from Fort Sumter.
Show him in. We may have to decide now. For Major Anderson?
Yes, sir. Word of mouth, sir.
Your credentials? Well?
Major Anderson presents his duty to the government, sir. He says he can hold Fort Sumter 3 more days without provisions and reinforcements.
See if Mr. Jennings has received a reply to his message yet.
Yes, sir.
Will you wait in there, please? Yes, sir. 3 days. If Jennings' message doesn't help us, 3 days.
Surely we'll have to withdraw now as a matter of military necessity.
Why doesn't Jennings come?
He'll never give in. And if we resist, war is inevitable.
I tremble at the thought of war. But we have a sacred trust in our hands in its threat. We are not aggressive. But if Jennings receives a negative reply to his message, it means Persuasion has failed, and I shall deem it our duty to resist. Come in.
Mr. Jennings has returned.
Show him in.
Mr. Jennings.
I hope you bring good news, Mr. Jennings.
I'm sorry. They won't give way.
You told them all I said.
Everything.
It's critical.
They are definite.
They leave no opening.
I regret to say, none.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Mr. Stewart.
Will you come in, please? Can you ride back to Major Anderson at once?
Yes, sir.
Tell him we can't reinforce him immediately. We haven't the men.
Yes, sir.
Say that the first convoy of supplies will leave Washington this evening.
Yes, sir.
Impress on him the need for the garrison holding out as long as is humanly possible. Tell him we're at war.
Yes, admit anyone who calls and inquire whether the president will be in to tea.
Mr. Lincoln sent word he'll be in before he meets with his cabinet.
Yes, very well.
Yes.
Oh, and Susan, you still say Mr. Lincoln. Now, you should say the president.
Yes, Mum. But you see, Mum, it's very difficult after calling him Mr. Lincoln for 15 years.
But you must try to remember everyone calls him the president now.
Oh, no, Mum. A good many people call him Father Abraham now. And just this morning in the stores, Mr. Muller said, "Well, Susan, how's old Abe this morning?"
Now, I hope you don't encourage things like that.
Oh, no, Mrs. Lincoln, no. I always refer to him as Mr. Lincoln.
But you should say the president.
Oh, dear, I'm afraid I'll never learn.
Well, now, you must try to remember.
Yes.
And send anyone up.
Yes. There's a lady waiting now.
Oh, well, why didn't you say so?
Well, I was going to, Ma'am, but you started to talk about Mr. Lincoln, the president.
Yes, all right, then show her up.
Yes. Mrs. Goliath Stowe.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Lincoln.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Stowe. Won't you sit down?
Thank you.
Lovely weather, isn't it?
It is lovely. You're keeping well, I trust?
Yes, indeed. And you?
Oh, quite well, thank you. And is the dear president well?
Yes, but he's rather tired.
Oh, this dreadful war. I was saying only yesterday to Goliath, the president will never give way until he has the South squealing.
The tea, Mrs. Lincoln.
Ah, yes.
And Mrs. Otherly is waiting.
Oh, well, show Mrs. Otherly in.
Oh, that dreadful woman. I believe she wants the war to stop.
Mrs. Otherly.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Otherly.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Lincoln.
You know Mrs. Goliath Stowe?
Yes. Good afternoon.
As I was saying, Goliath says the war will go on for another 3 years at least.
3 years? That would be terrible, wouldn't it?
Oh, we must all be prepared to make sacrifices.
Yes.
Goliath and I have had to do without so many things. But we must all deny ourselves something.
Mary.
Ah, good afternoon,
Good
dear
afternoon,
Mr.
ma'am.
President.
Good afternoon,
Good
Mr.
afternoon,
President.
ma'am. I regret I can't stay with you very long. I have to meet the cabinet in a few minutes.
You'll take tea?
Oh, thank you, Mary.
And is there any startling news, Mr. President?
Well, ma'am, Every morning when I wake up and say to myself 100 or 200 or 1,000 of my countrymen will be killed today, I find it startling.
Yes, of course, to be sure. But I mean, is there any good news?
There's news of a victory. They lost 2,700 men. We lost 800.
Oh, how splendid.
3,500 men.
Oh, but you mustn't talk like that, Mr. President. There were only 800 that mattered. Oh, these brutes in the South have got to be taught a lesson. That's what Goliath says.
Really now. Perhaps I could get Goliath a commission.
Oh, no. Goliath couldn't be spared. He's doing government contracts, you know. Goliath couldn't possibly go.
Mr. President, may I ask you a question?
Certainly, ma'am.
Isn't it possible for you to stop this war in the name of a suffering country? I ask you that.
Well, I'm sure such an idea would never have entered my head.
It's a perfectly right question. Ma'am, I have but one thought always. How can this thing be ended? But we have to preserve the integrity of the Union. It was a right cause 2 years ago. It's unchanged.
I believe that war is wrong under any circumstances, for any cause.
Well, I'm afraid the President would have but little encouragement if he listened often to this kind of talk.
I beg you not to harass yourself, ma'am. Ma'am, I too believe war to be wrong. It's the weakness, jealousy, and folly of men that make such a wrong thing possible. And it's for us who hate war to persuade men always and earnestly against it, and hope that little by little they'll hear us. I believe the world will come to wisdom slowly. In the meantime, ma'am, there is aggression. Some of us have an instinct to resist aggression. Now, you may call that a wrong instinct. I don't know. I don't think it is a wrong instinct.
Oh, I quite agree with you, Mr. President. And I hope Mrs. Otherly is satisfied. We could all complain, but we must all deny ourselves something, as I was saying to Mrs. Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. President, for what you've said. I must try to think about it. But I've always believed war to be wrong. I didn't want my boy to go because I believed it to be wrong. But he would. That came to me last week.
There are times, ma'am, when no man may speak. I grieve for you.
You don't mind my saying what I did?
We're all poor creatures, ma'am. Think kindly of me. Mary? Mary?
Oh, yes. Mrs. Otherly? Of course it's very sad for her, poor woman. But then she makes her troubles worse by these perverted views, doesn't she? Well, I must be going. I'll see Mrs. Lincoln as I go out. Good afternoon, dear Mr. President.
Good afternoon, ma'am. And I'd like to offer you a bit of advice. That poor mother told me what she thought. I don't agree with her, but I honor her. She's wrong, but she's noble. You told me what you think. I don't agree with you. And I'm ashamed of you and your like. It's you who sacrifice nothing to dishonor our cause, and it's you who would make our cause a mean and little thing. Good afternoon. Susan, if that woman comes here again, she may meet with an accident.
Yes, Mr. Lincoln.
That isn't at all what we were led to expect. The president is very definite about what he wants and why he wants it.
Well, an executive order is quite a different thing. What does he mean about emancipation? I've always thought that it was the Union we were fighting for. Abolition was to be kept in our minds for legislation at the proper moment. Now he talks as though emancipation were his only concern.
If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that. My paramount objective in this struggle is to save the Union. Now, gentlemen, I think the moment has come when we can best serve the cause of the Union by issuing a proclamation of freedom for all slaves.
May I ask, sir, how we are helping the cause of the Union by freeing the slave now at this particular moment?
Because, as you all know, I received word this morning that McClellan defeated Lee at Antietam. If this report is true, it's our greatest success. In any event, I believe that finally, at long last, the tide is turning. As long as we were losing the war, this proclamation would have meant nothing. But now, with victory finally assured to us in the end, such a proclamation will show to the world that in giving freedom to the slaves, we assure freedom to the free. All persons shall be thenceforward and forever free. Gentlemen, I pray for your support.
In my opinion, sir, this is altogether too impetuous.
Hook,
Yes, Mr. President?
you think you should be in my place.
You're well informed.
Isn't it true?
You take me unprepared. You have me at a disadvantage.
You speak as a scrupulous man, Hook.
Do you question my honor?
As you will.
Then I resign.
As a protest against...
Your suspicion.
Is it false?
Very well, I'll be frank. I mistrust your judgment.
In what?
Generally. You overemphasize abolition, and when you have, in my opinion, failed in the necessary firmness in stating what will be the individual penalties for rebellion. These Southerners must be punished.
This is a war, Hook. I will not allow it to become a blood feud.
We are fighting treason. It must be met with severity.
We will defeat treason, and I will meet it with conciliation.
That's a policy of weakness.
In my humble opinion, I believe it to be a policy of faith and compassion. Hook, why do you plague me with these jealousies? Once before I found a member of my cabinet plotting against me, but he was disinterested and he made amends nobly. I've watched you plotting and plotting for authority. Now you think I'm going to flatter you and ask you to stay. I won't do it. I'll accept your resignation.
I'm content.
Will you shake hands?
I beg you to excuse me.
Why, Mr. Lincoln, whatever did you say to Mrs. Stowe when she left this afternoon while she brushed by me pale and speechless as a ghost? Mr. Lincoln?
I simply told her the truth, Mary.
Well, you should try not to alienate people.
Well, the truth always seems to alienate somebody, Mary. I've uttered it twice today, and twice it made me enemies. I'm tired tonight, Mary. Read to me a little.
The Tempest?
The Tempest.
Same passage?
Same passage.
Our revels now are ended. These our actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit, shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
And now let's pause a moment and look at our Westinghouse program again. Want to see your picture? Why, sure. Let's put it on the frame.
That's what we're going to do. So watch very closely. See? I'm you. And here you are in your kitchen with your beautiful new Westinghouse Champion electric range. Picture yourself when your husband's in a hurry for breakfast, cooking bacon and eggs in just 3 minutes. Or picture yourself at lunchtime, preparing soup for 4, piping hot, in just 2 minutes and a half. Now, maybe you think you can't cook that fast, but you can when you have a Westinghouse Speed electric range because of the sensational new Super Corox unit here. Just turn the control on here, and it gets hot instantly and red hot in 30 seconds. It's by far the fastest cooking surface unit on the market today. Now, if you want your roasting and baking to turn out perfect, you're going to like this picture, too. See? In the Westinghouse Miracle Oven, you can bake and roast in any rack position. And that's true only with the Westinghouse range. You see this seal of fiberglass all around here? Well, that's a Westinghouse exclusive. It seals the heat in and keeps it perfectly balanced and completely uniform all through. Here's another part of the picture of this wonderful range in you. This is your 2-level cooker. Now, in this well position, it's perfect for French frying potatoes or donuts, making jams and jellies and dozens of other things. But suppose, in a pinch, you want another surface unit. Well, it's a real pinch hitter. You just lift those handles, give it a twist, and there. You have a 4th surface unit. Yes, this Westinghouse model, it's called the Champion, has all the features. Picture yourself with this beautiful electric range in your kitchen, and it's priced surprisingly low. So see it at your Westinghouse dealer. I know you'll love it. And remember, you can be sure if it's Westinghouse.
We return now to Westinghouse Studio 1 and Abraham Lincoln.
An hour and a half. There ought to be something more from me by now. Give me that map. Yes, no doubt about it. Lee may be a great general, but he can't get out of that. It's only a question of hours now, Mellons, and we can all go home.
It's hard to believe, sir.
Yes?
President Lincoln just arrived, sir. He's in the yard now.
President here?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll come. I wasn't expecting you, sir.
No, but I couldn't stay away. How's it going?
Me sent word an hour and a half ago Lee was surrounded all but 2 miles, which was closing in.
And I don't about settle it.
Unless anything goes wrong within those 2 miles.
Where exactly is the fighting?
Near Appomattox, sir.
Appomattox. Perhaps like Gettysburg, that'll be a name long remembered.
May I offer you a drink on that, sir?
No, thanks.
You mind if I have one?
Not at all. Puts me in mind the day the cabinet objected to your appointment as commander-in-chief. Was it that? I said, you tell me his brand, I want to send some barrels to the other generals. Grant Whedon's victory. Thank you.
Yes?
An officer with the dispatch, sir.
Bring him in.
Yes, sir.
General Meade, sir.
Thank you.
Aren't you the same man that brought me the news of Fort Sumter, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you for remembering, sir.
It's not difficult to remember our darkest hours. I trust you bring better news this time.
He does. Meade says they've closed the ring. He gives them 10 hours at the most.
10 hours to peace.
Any reply, sir?
Yes, tell him to do it in 9.
Yes, sir.
May I shake your hand and offer my thanks?
Thank you, sir.
Is there any proclamation to be made, sir, about the rebels?
No, I'll have no shooting or hanging any of these men, even the worst of them. There's been enough killing in this country to last forever.
Yes, sir. Will you look through this list? I hope it's the last we'll have.
What is it?
The list of court-martials. 1 shooting.
More killing, more of this useless bloodletting, Grant. Can't you do without it? No, of course not. Who is it?
Scott.
What'd he do?
Silence.
It's a rather hard case, sir. He'd just done a heavy march, and he volunteered for double guard duty to relieve his sick friend.
Is that a crime?
He was found asleep at his post.
I was anxious to spare him, but it couldn't be done. It's a critical place at a gravely critical time.
When is it to be?
Tomorrow at daybreak, sir.
I don't see that it's going to do him any good to be shot. Can I go see him?
Have him brought here.
Yes, sir.
I have to meet with Colonel West now, sir. Is there anything more before I go?
Nothing. Except to repeat my profound thanks, Grant.
We will probably sue for peace tomorrow, sir. Will you see him?
No. That's your affair, Grant. You're to mention no political matters. Be generous, but I don't need to say that.
I learned a great deal from Robert Lee in the early days. He's a much better man than most of us. I don't look forward to our meeting under such circumstances. Good evening to you, sir.
Thank you. Wait outside, will you? Are you William Scott?
Yes, sir.
The general tells me you've been court-martialed.
Yes, sir.
Sleep on guard.
Yes, sir.
That's a very serious offense.
I know, sir.
What was it?
Couldn't keep awake, sir.
You'd had a long march.
23 miles, sir.
And you were doing double guard?
Yes, sir.
Who ordered you?
I offered, sir.
Why?
Well, Enoch White, he was sick, and we both come from the same place, sir.
Where's that?
Vermont, sir.
You live there?
Yes, sir. We got a place up there, sir, a big farm.
Who has?
My mother, sir.
Does she know about this?
I was hoping she'd think I was killed in action, sir.
There, son. Sit down. I'm going to send you back to your regiment. You can go back tomorrow morning. I expect the fighting will be over, though. No, you better go back tonight. You know where General Meade is?
No, sir.
Have one of those men come in here, will you?
Guard.
Your prisoner is discharged. Take him at once to General Meade with this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Susan, is the president ready?
No, Mum.
Oh, did you remind him that we were going to the theater tonight?
Oh, yes, I told him that they raised the curtain at 8:30.
And what did he say?
Oh, he smiled and he said, Susan, my girl, the only advantage of being president in these troublous times is that they don't start the show until you arrive. That's what he said.
Oh, well, what's this, Susan?
It's a letter from Mr. Lincoln.
Oh, you mean the president?
Yes, that's what I said. His secretary just brought it.
Oh, did he say it was important?
No, he didn't say. Oh, yes. He said that Mr. Lincoln would want to see it.
Oh, dear, I had so hoped that the president's mind would be free of state duties for one night.
Yes, I understand, ma'am. You would think with the war won and all that the cares of the world wouldn't be so heavy on him.
Well, there's the peace to be won now, Susan.
Oh, Mr. Lincoln.
Well, my dear, I am ready.
And about time. Did you remember your handkerchief?
No, but Susan did. If it turns out to be a sad play, I'll be well prepared, thanks to Susan.
You're very welcome, Mr. Lincoln.
Is that a new dress?
Yes, I thought that now that the war was over, I'd indulge in something a little gayer. You don't think it's too extreme?
I think it's very nice, Mary. By the way, what play are we seeing tonight?
Well, it's called An American Cousin, I think. It's at the Ford Theater. Oh, and I have a present for you, and you must wear it.
Very well. And what's this?
Oh, Mr. Hayes sent it. He said you'd want to see it.
Well, maybe I better open it now.
No, well, don't you want to see what this is? I'll open the letter for you.
I imagine I can guess what this is.
I only hope it fits.
I'll make it fit. Thank you, Mary. Folks said I needed a new hat. Yeah, what is it?
My dear Mr. Lincoln, I never wrote to a president before this, so I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. I'm just a simple farm woman without much education, so please excuse my spelling and my grammar. I am the mother of William Scott, the boy you pardoned the night before the war ended. William had a few minutes before his regiment went into battle, so he wrote me a long letter explaining what you did. That's why I'm taking this opportunity to write to you now. You must be a merciful and wonderful man, Mr. Lincoln, to save a mother from the grief of losing her boy. If William was here now, I know that he would thank you too, Mr. Lincoln, but he was killed that night at Appomattox in action. But I just had to write this letter to say that I know you did all you could to save my boy. May God bless you always, Mr. Lincoln. Dorothy N. Scott, Pulteney, Vermont. I know you did everything you could, Mr. Lincoln. Mr. President, they're calling for you. Mr. Lincoln. Come, Mr. President.
We're such dreams as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
Betty Furness wants to show you a real neat trick.
Well, here's a deep pocket, deep enough so most irons couldn't get down into it, but watch this one. See? This iron slides right into the pocket way down deep. Isn't that neat? And here's the secret. The handle is open, completely open here in front. This is the revolutionary new Westinghouse open handle iron that's easier on your wrist, easier on your hand, and easier on you. It's easier on your wrist because there's nothing to get in the way of your thumb. Your wrist stays relaxed and free to move naturally, and there's no strain when you roll it back on its heel rest. It's easier on your hand because it really fits your palm. Your fingers stay relaxed. You don't have to grip the handle when you're ironing. If you just stay relaxed, your palm takes all the pressure comfortably, and you can even steer this iron with your fingertips. Why don't you go to your Westinghouse dealer and see this amazing open-handle iron? Oh, and while you're there, get your free copy of this new original word game. It's fun to play, and you'll learn lots more about the beautiful new open-handle iron, the easiest you ever used. And remember, you can be sure if it's Westinghouse. Off your house tonight. Get a Westinghouse Mobile Air fan. Roll it up to any open window or door and turn it on. And let me show you how powerful it is. There. It cools off the whole house. Ask your Westinghouse dealer for a Mobile Air fan.
Presidential portraits courtesy of Knoedler Gallery.